Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. What follows is a book review, book rant, book tirade about Washington Black. At the end of the original video, I mentioned that the book was for book club, and I make a speculation as to what my book club will say about the book. I wasn't far wrong, and I just wanted to give them a voice. They pretty much, I can't really tell you without spoiling it, but they did not love the book, and they remained very sort of neutral, aloof, and what would be the word? It's sort of disengaged with the book, I think. One person felt that it was unfair to criticize a black author. I don't get that. You either write a good book or you don't write a good book. Someone else felt that it was based on true facts, and so therefore, who are we to comment on it? So it was not a great book discussion, and I think not a great book to talk about if you've got any kind of qualms about the topic matter. So what follows is not calm, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you're looking for something a little quieter and peaceful, I'll be back next week with other books that I'm much less embroiled with. Bye-bye for now. Hello everyone, welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. I'm going to talk about a book that has caused so much trauma in this last month that I'm giving it its own special review. And I have a feeling it might be a bit unpopular. I'm talking about Washington Black by Edugyan, and I detested it. I loathed it. I could not talk about it in a sane kind of a way. And I didn't finish it. Although I did read the last couple of chapters just, to see whether anything had changed, whether my expectations were met, and they were. I find this book, and so spoilers, to me this book is porn, what do you call that? Trauma porn. It has a character that is experiencing unnecessary violence the whole way through. This kid from before 11, slave boy, enslaved boy in Jamaica, orphaned it seems, and in a situation where violence, if it's not happening to him, it's happening to the people around him. And I'm not just talking like we all think it's sort of an average enslaved life if you get whipped. That's like, if you don't get whipped, what happened to you kind of what? This is beyond being whipped. People are tortured, people are harmed in such a way that there's no chance of recovery. People are harmed in such a way that there's no chance of them being able to continue their task, and so then get, physically punished because, well, if you're supposed to be wielding a hoe and half your hand's being chopped off, then you can't wield a hoe very well, can you? So this is the environment that this child is brought up in. And there is an overseer who's just nuts, and an owner who's completely irresponsible, and his brother shows up and wants a young assistant, and what he's looking for is a child who is the correct height and weight, because he is working on air balloons, and he wants someone that he can use as ballast. So as the air balloon goes up, he wants someone that he can jettison if he needs to. And so this little boy comes along, and he turns into the houseboy, and he learns how to cook and so forth. And he's participating unknowingly in the building of this airship, and this is taking place in the 1700s. So the whole science around airships and all the rest of it is still fairly new, and lots of experimentation going on with different gases and all this kind of thing. So that's the reason that the brother has brought Washington Black, that's the name of the child, Washington Black, into his home. Well, eventually Washington is being educated. Turns out he's got a natural gift for illustration, and so Washington himself is just such a victim. He has this incredible skill. It's being used and manipulated to the benefit of the white folks. And there's just these crazy scenes as to why they end up. Oh, okay, I've missed a big part. Washington happens to be in the way when there's an explosion of gas, so he's terribly burned. But 11-ish, 12-ish, something in there, terribly burned. Heals, of course, terrible scars. Big silly thing happens, and they've got to go up in the balloon, and a storm comes along. The balloon lands on a ship in the middle of whatever that ocean is, Pacific Ocean, and no, whatever ocean it is. I'm terrible with geography. And the story ensues, and so from somehow they're on the run because the owner of the slave child is looking for them, and there's a price on their heads, and they go up to the Arctic. There's another whole story about the brother's father has been declared dead, and so searching for dead dad in the Arctic. They get to the Arctic, and dad has no interest in his son, and this little boy is just being dragged along, terribly scarred and disfigured. Nobody wants to deal with him, and the father and son have a falling out. The son walks away, abandons the little black child in the middle of the bloody Arctic. Like, what the? Well, on top of all of that, they've had this incredible journey from Jamaica up to the Arctic, and we see almost nothing of it. And then we see almost nothing of the relationship between the father and the son that's so misaligned. We see, we do sort of see that. We certainly get a sense that dad is a total asshole, and we get a sense of the son's despair around that, but we don't really mix in with it. We're just kind of watching, and we're sort of Washington Black in a way, because he doesn't get half of what's going on around him. He is so out of his depth. How do you go from Jamaica to the Arctic? You've got a 2 pair of wool socks. Unbelievable. So then this man, this not quite owner, leaves this child in the Arctic, takes off, and this little guy has to get from the Arctic back to somewhere where it's warmer, and gets on a boat, ends up in Nova Scotia, and then ends up in London. And I sort of skipped. I got as far as the Arctic, and then I was starting to read Nova Scotia, and it's only 2 years later, and he's around 14, and nothing really changes. So I gave up, and then thought, yeah, it's for a book club that's coming up in January. So I thought I should finish this book. I can't finish this book. Read the last 2 chapters, just thinking, maybe something redeeming happens. Maybe there's hope. No, they end up in bloody Marrakesh, somehow by way of England, and then Marrakesh, and come back to the brother that had gone missing in the Arctic. And this is all happening in less than 4 years. And Washington has become a fairly famous illustrator. How does that happen? The timelines are wrong, the plot lines are wrong, the ongoing physical hardship that this child is going through is just, I couldn't take it. I just couldn't take it. And not just the child, not just Washington Black is getting harmed. Along the way, everybody is just getting blasted to pieces. Body parts are falling off from the frost, or gangrene is setting in there was no point to any of it. The child didn't have to be Black. It could have been any traumatized child that weighed, 15 pounds that was going to be popped over the side of this thing. It didn't have to get to the Arctic. It could have gone to Windsor, Ontario. There was no sense of geography really along the way. There's plenty of cold, miserable places Nebraska, Montana, Boston. It's what was the point of the Arctic? The dad is an explorer, but he was on the run. He didn't want to have anything to do with his family, so he had written this letter that said he was dead. He didn't want anything to do with the family, so he could have been in Boston just so long as the family believed he was dead. I have nothing positive to say about this book. And the reason I'm talking about it, one of the things, two things, I guess I should back, it's too late to back up. This author wrote Half-Blood Blues, which was the winner of the Scotiabank Giller Prize and a finalist for the Man Booker Prize. Okay, so I've said in the past, generally speaking, I run from authors who win the Booker Prize. But because this is part of a book club choice, I got kind of trapped into it. The people that I've spoken to about this have loved Half-Blood Blues. I gather that's about a young musician who goes to Europe before World War II and has a very good experience. Apparently that's a completely different book. This one, as far as I can tell, has no relationship to that other one in terms of theme or philosophy behind the book, or I don't know. I don't know what she was thinking. So because I couldn't finish it, and I was just so upset by the amount of harm that this child received, I could not read anything where people were in despair or being hurt or had any kind of significant trauma. I was looking for something ridiculously foolish to read. And I couldn't find it, and so, you know, I am reviewing something about Elizabeth Strout in another video where I just couldn't read her books because her characters were all very sad and demoralized, and it's just ruined me. This book has just ruined me. Don't read it. It's just going to completely screw up your whole reading plans. Everything that comes afterwards is going to feel so much of a letdown. So I was thinking, read P.G. Wodehouse. If you read that kind of a book, have a Wodehouse short story on your bedside table so you can read it and laugh before bed. That's all I have to say about that book. I think when my book club, I might come back to it. The book club that's reading it is not a group of people that read fiction comfortably. They're very much nonfiction kind of readers, and so I'll be curious to see whether they have an emotional reaction to this or whether they're going to take it as sort of very informative and as nonfiction. Like sometimes people read fiction and see it as nonfiction. I have a feeling that's where this group will go, but we'll see. Anyhow, that's it for me. I hope all your reading adventures and aspirations and dreams are way more positive than this book. Bye-bye for now.